Well, President Biden's voting rights bill appears all but doomed in the Senate, but there is growing bipartisan support for a different kind of election reform focused on the Electoral Count Act. Our next guest calls that 1887 law muddled and flawed. Indiana Congressman Jim Banks. He is the chairman of the Republican Study Committee, and it's great to have you today. I noticed that you had tweeted about the Election Count Act, that you would be willing to take a look at this and make it more clear. And it seems to me that the Democrats, they ought to take you up on that, because that is one of the issues that they really wanted to try to deal with after last year, in January 6th.
That's right, Dana. I mean, this is a law that's almost 150 years old. It's confusing. It's muddled. There were thoughtful debates on both sides of this question leading up to and even after January 6th about how this law is interpreted, what it means, and I'm all for changing it, revisiting it, clarifying it. The Democrats, though, they're not serious about doing that. In fact, they're being warned by their leaders that they can't talk about reforming the Electoral Count Act because it distracts from their larger election reform bills to federalize elections to give Democrats an advantage on Election Day. It's a shame. If you really want to do something about this question, then let's have a bipartisan effort to clarify a law that's 150 years old rather than the efforts the Democrats are taking to politicize and use January 6th as a political weapon against their political enemies.
Sir, we're going to get to the midterm discussion here in a moment, and party affiliation was very interesting from Gallup yesterday afternoon. But on that point there, tomorrow the president's going to mark 1 year in office. And you think about the long slog of the year you have ahead of you, coming up in midterms 10 months away. Well, what do you honestly think can get done in this Congress? Or do you believe the business is finished for now, possibly?
Well, in 1 year, this administration has done a lot of damage to our country, and the American people see it. I mean, inflation is affecting each and every American family in this country. They feel it, and the only thing they're hearing from Washington, from President Biden and Nancy Pelosi and these Democrats, is that they're better off and they can afford it. And it's that type of tone-deaf rhetoric coming from Washington, D.C. that's turned a lot of independent and even Democrat voters into Republican voters heading into the midterm. It's in rising inflation, it's crime rates, it's drugs flowing over the border like we've never seen before. It's been a disastrous recipe for this country, and ultimately this midterm election is going to shift the Congress into Republican hands, I think, in a big way, with a bigger majority than what people are even predicting at the moment.
So we'll see how he handles that tomorrow. We've talked already today about how the Republicans are on the upswing. I did want to ask you about Afghanistan as well, because if you look at when the polls really started to go down for President Biden, you look at August of 2021. Here's something that we read in National Review. I think it's worth revisiting. What America owes the Afghans we left behind. America's abrupt abandonment of Afghanistan and our allies there is inhumane. Tens of thousands of Afghans who aided our war on terror mission are waiting for us to uphold our promise to protect them and provide safe admission to America. Congressman, I don't know if you still have constituents that have problems, but I hear from people every day about one in particular I'm thinking about, comes to mind, Bilal Ahmad. He is an American citizen. He should be allowed to come back to the United States, but he's in a refugee camp in the Emirates after he went and saved his wife and son from the Taliban.
Yeah, Dana, I served in Afghanistan. My heart goes out to the Afghan people, especially the women and young girls who are being treated so horribly by the Taliban regime. My concerns lie with that. It also lies with the report that came out of the Pentagon this last September that says that later this year, Afghanistan will become a safe haven again to terrorist organizations who are willing, ready, and able to launch international attacks coming from Afghanistan. Again, this is a question of competence. The way the Biden administration handled the pullout by withdrawing troops without evacuating our own, our allies, people who helped us along the way. We now have 83,000 Afghans who were unvetted, who hopped on our planes. There are so many issues related to competence when it comes to what this administration did that are going to have long-term effects, not just on our country, but the rest of the world for a long time to come.
Jim Banks.
Congressman, thank you.
Thank you for coming in today.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Democrats